Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. I have here Nanette Murphy, a mother of three and once married for 25 years, transformed a personal journey of healing post-divorce into a mission to guide other women. Certified as a life and health coach, she has also penned a book and established her coaching practice. Specializing as a divorce and health coach, she's dedicated to supporting women navigating long-term marital separations, ensuring they prepare for the challenges ahead. With a focus on holistic guidance and financial preparedness, Nanette is an advocate for women not only surviving the aftermath of divorce, but flourishing in their next life chapter. Thank you so much, Nanette, for joining me today.
Well, thanks, Gina, for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Of course. Now, can you just tell us a little bit about your journey and what led you to become a divorce and life transition coach for women?
Well, I divorced about 10 years ago. I always say the good news is I don't keep track anymore. And I was, like I said, I was married. Like by the time I divorced, it would have been our 25th wedding anniversary, and you think you have a plan, and then the plan changes. And yeah, it took a lot out of me. But, I always say 2020 was really the year of changes for me. I mean, it was a crazy time for the entire world. But there's a part of me that looks at it as a gift, because that is really when I found my purpose, which turned into my passion, which now is really, I call it a mission, because I really want to bring awareness to women that they don't have to go through this journey of divorce alone. It's scary. As you know, we've talked, it's a tough decision. And sometimes it's not our decision. So then we have to make that transition to make the best of it. And I always knew there was a reason this all happened to me. Like there has to be some reason. And then eventually I found it. And yeah, I'm not stopping. There's no boundaries. I will do whatever it takes. I really want to change the way women divorce.
Right. Yes. And I was just mentioning to you that I have a girlfriend of mine who does similar to what you do, and she does co-parenting coaching. And it's just a blessing to have women like you just to come and help us because I'm divorced. I'm divorced too. This was a while ago. And fortunately, my path led me to remarrying again. But I don't think I was ready, but the Lord had different plans for me. But now that I've learned and did a lot of self-healing and really took that time to take care of my own well-being, where the nutrition came in, the holistic health came in, where I was doing yoga, meditating, had a mindset coach. I was just like transforming completely. And that's just a wonderful addition to have a divorce coach that kind of giving you prepared for what's to come in the
Right.
courtroom, because the courtroom is scary. It is scary and I hate it.
Absolutely. And I talk to so many women, so many women who are already divorced, and they divorce and they regret, they feel like they were pushed, they were manipulated, they were not supported by their attorney. They clearly their once husband, they're not taking care of you anymore, and to go on that journey by themselves. I know I did. Unfortunately, I had a girlfriend who we were going through the same thing at the same time, but it was the blind leading the blind. Like we were both, I was a little further ahead of her. So she would, ask me questions and we'd just group together to get that support. If I would have known that there was such a thing as a divorce coach, sign me up, because I always say now that the amount of money that I wasted with that emotional side with my attorney, where she was just listening, there was no guidance, it was just the clock ticking. More money in her pocket.
Right.
Didn't help me any, it didn't serve me any, other than spilling my guts to her when I was frustrated. But it's so important to have both those professionals. I call it a team, and there's more than just an attorney and a coach on your team. But this isn't just let's get this done and walk away and everything's fine. The journey is tough. it's tough, especially if you really didn't want it. You didn't really initiate it, but knew you had to, like there was no choice.
Mm,
There's a lot of healing that has to be done. And fortunately, I've actually even got it's called a rebuilding when your relationship ends. So, just because the papers are signed doesn't mean you're good.
right.
There's almost as long as, if not longer, journey ahead of you, just figuring out life and healing. And like you said, moving on and working on yourself. It's a big process.
It is a process. Now, in your experience, what are some of the most common emotions that and challenges, I should say, that women face when they prepare for the divorce?
I think the concern and problem is where they want to live.
Mm,
So many women want to stay in that marital home. They don't want to part with it. They don't want to leave. And more often than not, when I tell them, if you don't plan on staying there for 3 to 5 years after your divorce, cut your ties now. And so many women want to stay. And then months later, even before their divorce, they're going, you're right. Like, I just need to get it. It's about change. Like,
mhm.
you don't want to live in those walls where those memories are. You really don't. But again, it's a process. You have to figure that out for yourself. But 9 times out of 10, they say, yeah, you were right. I just need to leave this house and start fresh, because you can build new memories. You really can. And they can be actually really great memories. They will be great memories. But starting with that clean slate is, I feel, and I've experienced, is the best way to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you because I remember just the separation itself. It was hard for me to go back inside that house. I felt like it was like a hollow or emptiness inside, and it was like a sick feeling that you had in your heart and in your stomach. You're just like, ugh.
I just
And
get goosebumps hearing you say that.
yes, it is. It is. And I felt like so empty because there was nobody in the house, not even my own children. So it was just me. And I'm like, I remember it was he and I had discussed, and I think it was his mom watching our son at the time, and our son at the time was only 6 years old, and I remember after he and we had met for like something, we are just talking about the divorce and everything. And then after that, I remember calling my friend and crying and crying on the road. I don't know what to do. I can't handle this. And mind you, this is during the time that I was heavily drinking and into my sickness. And I became worse because of the divorce or during the divorce process and the separation. So I remember going inside that house. I got so sick and so nauseous, and I just fell to the floor and I had my head down to the ground, and I just like screamed, and just like this ugly like wail came out. It's an emotional process. And I remember then not wanting to get out of bed. I was just drinking myself in bed, and I was just so depressed because I just knew, like, what do I do next? Now
Absolutely.
it's so challenging. Now we're just talking about like the emotional journey that everyone goes through, and it's not only just a legal battle, but of course, the emotions that take place. Now, can you elaborate more on that perspective about what other emotions women experience during this?
Another big one is fear. Just
Mhm.
fear of, now what do I do? And I mainly coach women who are divorcing, 20, 30, 40 years. That's a long time to be in a comfortable place. And then all of a sudden they're on their own. They've never, they don't pay the bills, they don't invest, they don't have, sometimes they don't even have a checking account or a bank account. Like, these are all new things, and they're terrified.
Mm.
So, I recently spoke with one of my more recent clients, and even just after our first initial conversation, and I, kind of walked her through some, getting some ideas, asking her some questions. She said, I feel so much lighter already. Just, I think it's just knowing that someone has almost like a map for you if you need to follow it. Let's just take it step by step, and not, the other thing is, don't beat yourself up over what you don't have. But I think that the fear of the unknown for all of us, it can be paralyzing. I heard someone recently referred to it as feeling paralyzed. And I'm like, that's an excellent analogy, because there's so many emotions going on in your head already, or in your body,
Mhm.
that trying to focus and really make a good decision, what you think is a good decision today, probably won't look that way in 6 months. So let's get a different perspective. Let's talk to someone that you can feel comfortable with. And again, emotional. If you feel like crying, cry. Go ahead. This is the space that you need to do that in. And I tell women too, if you're scared, or if you're lonely, or if anger is another big one. And those, as you know, the emotions come, it's a roller coaster. One day you're crying, the next minute you're screaming. I'm always an advocate to tell my clients, do something that will release those feelings. If you're angry, go scream in a pillow. Go, go to the gym and run your heart out, or, find something that you can actually be physical. I loved kickboxing. I discovered kickboxing,
I
and
love
it
it
was
too.
fabulous. It was like, oh, I really like this. This is really a good way to release that just pent up anger, emotion, because you have to recognize the emotion and you have to move through it. You really have to address it. Like, you can't go, oh, I'm so afraid, and then, no, I'm not. Just face it. Face that fear, you know?
Yes, it reminds me of the quote I always say, um, "The only way out is through." You just got to go through it. Just to get out of it, you have to go through it, and that's what's really going to build your character, build the strength that you really do have inside. And you'd be surprised about your spirit and how much it can
Oh,
handle.
absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, if somebody would have told me just 3 years ago, I would be on podcasts and talking freely and videotaping myself, I would have been like, no, I'm not. It just wasn't who I was. But until you have a message that needs to be heard, then there's really like the chains are off, and you don't feel tied down to that fear of speaking, with that fear of stepping out of your comfort zone. Um, and that's really when opportunities open up for you, and the world just is a bigger place, and you meet so many people when you step out of that comfort zone that you're in.
Yes. And how do you approach coaching somebody who's just considered divorcing versus someone who's like very much deep inside the process?
Um, well, the first thing I want to know with them is, I really address like their financial situation. I want to know those questions. Do you have a bank account? Do they have a job? Do they know how to pay bills? Unfortunately, is again, especially my generation, and older, there were definite tasks.
Mm.
And so often, and even now, so often the men handle the finances and the women don't. So these are the things that I really want to set them up for success. You know, Speaking to someone who can help them out with their finances, figuring out, what are your expenses? That's a huge thing. What are your monthly expenses? How much money do you spend each month? Most of us would go, wow, I really don't know. But these are all really important stepping stones for them as they prepare to eventually, ultimately, live a life on their own, independent. And again, as fearful as that can be, it can be done. But again, there's so many challenges that I just don't want women to do it on their own. I did. It was a long process. It was a long process.
Yeah, because finances, they don't teach that in school. I mean, heck, I should just hire you. Single people should just hire you because I think everybody struggles with finances, and especially if you're married, going through a divorce, and that's even more challenging because it's like, especially if you haven't handled the money, period. Like, how do you all of a sudden handle money? Scary.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is scary. It is scary. And the unfortunate part too is, many, and I say women only because I coach women, feel that, oh, a coach is just going to add to my expenses. And I'm like, no, it actually isn't. And I've actually spoken to divorce attorneys who are truly advocates for coaches. They want their clients to get a divorce coach as well. And even they agree. Yeah. Why do you want to spend $500 an hour and half the session you're emotional and you don't know what to do and you can't make these decisions? Coach, we don't, I mean, I don't charge that much, you know. So, but again, they are in agreement, and which really excites me, because I actually prefer the women to come to me before. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.
I didn't realize my phone was on.
It's okay.
The attorneys I want them to be prepared with all their documents. I want them to have a bunch of questions answered. And that initial meeting with their attorney, it's business, you know, and then, you know, maybe you'll have questions for them or they'll have questions for you, but I want them to come with their suitcase full of information for them so that they can just get what needs to be done.
Right. And the attorneys, I'm just thinking about them right now, and all I see is they're seeing dollar signs and you're seeing like the heart.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's exactly what that is. But it's, again, changing the mindset. Society tells everyone, oh, you're getting divorced. Do you have your attorney? That's the first thing that they think that you need to do. And I've actually spoken to some local attorneys who they say, I don't want to speak with them until they've spoken to a coach. Like, let's make this process quicker, and let's not, again, drag it out, but be in the support of the person that they're, being a lawyer for. I want to be able to support someone and say, here's the steps you need to take. And a financial advisor, again, and it may be somebody at the bank. It doesn't have to be, a high-end company, but knowing what's ahead of them can also alleviate that fear.
Yes, definitely. Now, because I know many women feel much isolated. Now, do you have a community of women that where they can all collaborate and share information and maybe possibly give each other support?
Absolutely. So I have a group on Facebook, and I'm just transitioning out of it because I am creating a group inside my website, a membership area where, yeah, we can get, they can get one-to-one coaching, group coaching if they want it, different blog posts and information that they can get, because, but divorce coaching it's a unique niche, because you're not dealing, like, I've worked with business coaches, and you're with a group of women and they're all starting their businesses and they all, network together. A lot of women who are divorcing are very reluctant to be in a group. And I don't know, maybe it's just being face to face sometimes. So again, that is, optional. I think sometimes one-to-one is better in those initial stages, and then, move from there, because each situation is so unique. Some are stuck, like, even after they're divorced, they're stuck. They're still sitting in denial, so, and that, I was just talking to a woman the other day about how she was in a support group, but she didn't feel like, it almost scared her because they weren't moving on. She was listening to people who had been divorced for 4 years and they were still stuck. And she's like, oh my God, I hope that's not going to be me. So jury's still out for me on the benefits of group coaching with divorce, because you've got to make sure that the right people are together and moving forward together Does that make sense?
Yes, everybody's life is different than somebody else's. Our journeys, our paths are all different and vary. Because someone who may move on quicker, the other person may not, and that's okay.
That's
It's
okay. Absolutely. And that's why I wouldn't want a woman who's not moving along very quickly to feel inadequate, because other women in the group are, oh yeah, I'm good here and I'm good there. And then they feel like, okay, what's wrong with me? And I
yeah.
never want a woman to feel that way, um, because she may be dealing with um, a narcissistic husband. She may be dealing with a sickness, or you just don't know. And there's so many people out there who are going through all their own struggles. So I hate to like bulk them all together.
Yes, and that's good that you offer then one-on-one and then group. So for the ones who do want more of that community and feel that they want that support, you have that available. But then the ones who are like, you know what, I don't want to compare myself to these people
Oh,
here, these women here. Let me go ahead and focus one-on-one. So that's wonderful and beautiful that you have those two options available. Now you are also an author. Can you share and talk a little bit about your book?
I would love to. Actually, I was just thinking about that book today. It's been 3 years since its debut, which is crazy that it was already 3 years ago. It's interesting. When I started working with my own life coach, she was the one that gave me great encouragement to write my story. And it's a memoir, but it's also, I wrote it for inspiration. I mean, it's my story, um, on how I got to where I am and the struggles. But I always say that in the book, I say I didn't write it to hurt anyone. I didn't write it to, I'm not looking for sympathy, or I want it to be a story that will inspire someone else, that there's challenges in everyone's life. Doesn't matter who you are. It's how you handle those challenges and how you get through it. And again, it's also, I don't think anyone can really get through something successfully without some sort of support.
Mhm.
We're not meant to do that. So my book, I was very excited about it. And since then I've written a couple more since then. So I've been part of multi-author books, which is a very interesting journey as well. Um, and then I also have, so my book that is called Shattered Dreams and New Beginnings. And then I recently wrote A Clearer Path to Divorce. And it really is just a guideline on how to prepare. Um, because again, not everyone is, even when they're preparing, they're not always ready to speak to someone, because then it makes it real.
Mhm.
So
It's
it's just,
wonderful. Yeah, and can you find that on your website or is that on through Amazon?
everything is on my website, livelifenowwithpurpose.com. All of my resources are there. I have coaching programs that can be purchased. I've just recently released just a 30-minute webinar, a couple books, a journal. I created a journal because I don't know about anybody else, but I always find journaling very challenging. Opening up that blank page and go, suddenly I don't know what to write. So I have prompts and just, things to think about, so that it kind of helps a woman pour those thoughts onto a paper.
Oh, I
But
love
yes,
that.
everything I offer is on my website.
Awesome. And now, can you just share a success story or a transformative experience on one of your clients?
Oh,
Uh,
for sure. I think it's probably one of my most recent ones, because she's fresh in my mind. She went from, she's working on that guilty side that she feels, but, and had to live with her partner even after the divorce was final. And it was challenging for her. But again, with coaching, she'd get on our calls and ask me questions and say, this is what's happening, and how did you handle this? And now she's with someone else and moving forward with her life. And um, is it, again, it's pretty recent, but she's so much happier now. than she was. I just had the conversation with her. It's like we've been chatting since November, and now almost a year later, like the changes. I said, "Can you believe it's been almost a year?" And she said, "It's incredible." But she has written me a review about how it would have been so much harder and so much more challenging to go at it alone. So
Yes. Oh, it's beautiful. I was going to say that I wish you were there when I was going through my divorce.
yeah, you
I would
hear
it
it
would
all
have made life so much easier and just but I guess like everyone like I always say to everybody, everybody's life and path is different. And so I had to do what I had to do. But trust me, I would have gone to you if I was in the same predicament.
what I say is, divorce is like a club you never wanted to belong to.
Yeah.
But now that you're here, I just really feel like it's my duty. It's what I'm supposed to do because I have knowledge and experience. I should share it with other women so that it makes their life. It's not going to be an easy ride, but I can definitely take away some of the stress, ease the anxiety a little bit, and just have someone there that you can call or text. I always tell my clients, if you need to text me during the week or between 2 weeks or whatever in between each session, go ahead. Like, let me know what's going on. You're not going to get that with an attorney. They're not going to give you free emotional support. Yeah,
They need help with their emotional support. I need
exactly.
to start building some emotions because they're so tense
Exactly.
and it's like I
Yeah.
did not have a good experience with my attorney. I remember she was
Oh,
like evil. I was like, had to
yeah.
fire her.
I hear that story. I hear that so often that they just don't feel like their attorney is on their side. But the other thing I want to add to is when you're working with a coach, you really have to be able to be open to their suggestions and take their advice and actually have to do the work. Because, like I said, it's not just, filling out your expenses or gathering this paperwork. You really have to try to work on that emotional side of it. I always say it's spiritual, emotional, and physical strength that you need to get through this. And they have to address their physical, emotional, spiritual strength every day. Like this isn't just, a one-time shot. There needs to be a daily ritual of self-care because
Yeah.
that's really what's going to get them through that emotional healing is what's going to get them through the ugliness of it.
Yeah. And what did you do to practice self-care during your process?
I really I was already, a gym rat, but I mixed up my routine. I was very focused on daily exercise, whatever that might look like. I actually learned to, meditate better, getting into yoga, stepping up my healthy eating habits. One thing that I often did was adult coloring. I loved to just sit and quietly color by myself. And it was actually a time when I learned to really enjoy being alone. I was the mother of three kids. I had three kids, three dogs at one point. I mean, I was never by myself. So,
Yeah.
but just learning to take a walk, like read a book, take that time to just decompress and
And
be.
yeah, and it's so necessary. A lot of us just don't do that, especially moms. We just
No,
like forget about us because it's all about the children and which is good, but if mom's not happy, then the household's not happy. We need to take care of us first in order for, everyone else to be okay, mom's good, we're good then too, because we're the role model.
absolutely, absolutely. And again, society has always told women, you know, now, work inside the home, work outside the home. Oh, and you have to be a part-time teacher and you have to be able to be that taxi driver that takes your kids to all the sports. And there's a lot. There is
Yeah.
a lot. So then doing all of that, Well, oh, let's throw a divorce into it. Let's throw all this unknown and darkness into it. Yet you don't want to do this by yourself. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Because we wear so many hats. We're like, the cooks, the cleaners, we are the emotional counselors for our children. We are, the Uber drivers. We are just everything. And then, yes, when you do add, divorce, it's like you just feel like you're being pushed down to the ground. It's like, how much can I take? But women we have beautiful gifts, and I feel that we can get through anything. And I don't feel like things that are thrown at us, if they're thrown at us, we can definitely handle them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be thrown at us. And it's just to make us stronger as a spiritual being. And then like you turned your pain into purpose. And now look what you're doing, helping other women. And that's exactly what this world is changing into, that everyone's helping, taking their pain into purpose and helping others, like myself as well. I should include myself. It,
You
it's
should, absolutely. What you're doing is wonderful as well.
Yeah, so I'm just so grateful that I'm meeting you. And then I'm just meeting a bunch of women who are doing the same thing, whether it be like health coaching, helping with women with their gut, or whether there's just like, fitness coach. And oh, I trust me, I love my cardio kickboxing. That's something that I did as well during my recovery. And I was just like, it just got everything out. I was kicking and I was punching. I was screaming, I was sweating. I was like, yes.
It's cleansing on so many levels. But Gina, I want to point out that what you're doing is, giving women like us the platform to spread our message, which is so important.
Oh, yeah. It's just like you were saying, like if you talked to me about a couple of years back and said, oh, you're going to have podcasts and have your own business, and I'd be like, yeah, right. But I really believe that 2020 gave us that time to realize our gifts and our purpose and why we are really here. So it gave us a nice pause. I know there was some bad that came from 2020.
It was
Bad of my,
tragedy.
yeah.
It was tragedy. But
It,
if you were able to make some real production, real use out of that time, I know many people who grew their businesses from 2020, and it's really kind of a beautiful thing. I always said that the universe had sent us to our room to think about what we'd all just done, over lifetimes, and how I think people really, really reflected on that.
Yes, a lot of people left corporate because I was also in a business group coaching as well. And a lot of the women said, I left corporate, I left corporate, I left corporate. And they created their own business,
Yeah, they do.
helping other women.
And that's
Yeah.
also struggling out there because people don't want to be taken advantage of anymore, worked, overworked, underpaid, all of that. They're realizing their own worth, um, and which is really important for all
Mhm.
of us, men, women, children, everyone. We all need to know that we're enough, and we don't
Mhm.
have to give more than we can handle, than we can give out.
Right. Oh my goodness. I just heard horror stories about the corporate world and how they are just working 80 hours a week. I'm like, oh my
Yeah,
goodness, just way too much. So it's good to have like your own business and you set your own hours, and then you enjoy helping people. You love what you do. You're passionate about it. And then the receiving, and they're just grateful just to receive that help and receive that love. It's beautiful.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So for women who are listening right now and maybe going through like a tough divorce or contemplating one perhaps, what would be your message for them?
Oh, my message is number one, don't take on these challenges alone. Don't be afraid to reach out for help. Um, find a good coach. I mean, I would love women to come to me for me to coach them, but clearly I'm only one person. Go out and really interview a few. Talk to other women who have been through it, through divorce, because that's really the first step that has to be taken, is to reach out for help, um, and then go from there. Who knows where it will take you. Um, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. And then can you just run by through like the process you take a client if they do want to work with you?
Oh, well, but again, if they are literally just contemplating, I will we go through this, this checklist of where they are at in their life. And then I will recommend them, and I have some recommendations for them, to financial advisors. And there are actually certified divorce financial advisors, which again, just in the last, since 2020, has become much more common, because once they speak to that person, then they can give them a better picture of their finances. I am not the financial person. And then from there, we can direct them to hiring an attorney. But then there's also that checklist of, what are you doing for yourself? What do you do for yourself every day? Where do you want to be in, with yourself, physically, mentally? And, there's all kinds of, checklists that we go through. And sometimes, like, there's one client, she's dealing with a husband who doesn't want a divorce, and he's very controlling. So, we have to take things very slowly and be very cautious about how we move forward. So that's why I said each situation is so different. Sometimes the woman needs to move on, move out, but she's really scared to do that. So then we have to figure out, okay, well, how are we going to get you even out of bed today?
Mm.
As you mentioned earlier, not being able to get out of bed. I've been there, done that. And I look back and go, oh my gosh. And I had a daughter to get off to school, get her off to school and come back into bed. So these are the things that especially that initial meeting is where they're at, where their head is at, what they anticipate, and what they know is for sure. So I hope that also makes.
Yeah, yes. Thank you so much for clarifying that. Now, how can you're on social media?
I'm on social media,
All
yes.
right. What are your handles so people who are listening to this, the women that are listening to this, can go ahead and find you?
Yes, divorce coaching with Nanette. And divorce and life transition coach is my Facebook and Instagram handle. LinkedIn, and it's under Nanette Murphy. But when you go to Live Life Now with purpose.com, you can find me everywhere there, like all of my resources and blogs and social media links.
Yes, and I will have all of those in the show notes for you. And is there any last thoughts or anything else you would like to share?
Now, at the end of the day, I really just want women to understand that how important it is to be prepared before you even go and see your attorney. And on the other note, I just realized, I remembered, is a woman contemplates divorce on average for 2 years. So my thought is, in those 2 years, you can do a lot of preparing mentally, financially. There's so many things that you can be prepared for. And at the end of the day, I'm not an advocate for divorce. I wish it didn't happen, but it does happen. So in those 2 years, if they prepare, maybe they decide not to. But if they do decide to, then they're ready. They're ready to move into that next phase. Even working with a divorce coach, there's a lot of emotional things that we can work through. Again, preparation is key. That's my final word.
Yes. It totally makes sense too. You're like, if you're thinking about it, and it does take a while to actually get into the process of the whole divorce because of the attorney's fees and all that. It is good to actually have a plan. And that's where you also then come in. Oh, so you do everything pre, during, and post. That's wonderful.
Really, and then I just have a rebuilding program that I've just begun facilitating meetings for. And it's to help that healing process, to get unstuck. And even people who've been divorced for a long time find themselves still stuck, still angry. Yeah, they need to get into some sort of a healing program.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Nanette. It was a pleasure having you on my show today.
Thank you. It's been a great opportunity. Thanks, Gina.
My pleasure.